Hello there. It is my pleasure to be talking about The Periodic Table by Primo Levi. I discovered Primo Levi just 1 year ago when I read If Not Now, When? And I simply could not believe that I have been obsessively pursuing literature for the last 30 years, and only in 2022 did I discover Primo Levi. It is a shame. But the important thing is that I did discover his books, and that I can make this video and recommend that you read him as well. I think it is important to talk a little bit about Primo Levi before discussing this book. The most important elements of this author's life was that he was born Jewish, and he was living in Italy during the rise of Nazi Germany. Primo Levi was especially interested in chemistry, even though there were laws prohibiting Jewish people from studying at university. He somehow managed to get a place at university, amazingly good fortune to get a degree in chemistry. And the reason why it is so especially fortuitous is that it cannot be denied that it completely saved his life on more than one occasion. Most poignantly on the one occasion where he was deported from Italy and sent to Poland, to Auschwitz, when he was taken off the train and it was discovered that he had a degree in chemistry that saved his life. He got to work in the laboratory. His life was still awful. He was still starving, and he had to steal anything he could possibly steal to get food, but he lived, which is a small miracle, because it was calculated that on the day you set foot in Auschwitz as a prisoner, your life expectancy was 6 months at the most. And he was there for nearly a year. Just like to read a little bit from the chapter called Nickel. I had in a drawer an illuminated parchment on which was written in elegant characters that one Primo Levi of the Jewish race had been conferred a degree in chemistry summa cum laude. It was therefore a dubious document, half glory, half derision, half absolution and half condemnation. It had remained in that drawer since July 1941, and now we were at the end of November. The world was racing to catastrophe, and around me nothing was happening. The Germans had spread like a flood in Poland, Norway, Holland, France, and Yugoslavia, and had penetrated the Russian steppes like a knife cutting through butter. The United States did not move to help the English, who remained alone. The reason why that is significant is because Primo Levi wrote quite a lot about his own experiences surviving Auschwitz. And I believe one of his most famous novels, I haven't read it yet, If This Is a Man, which is his account of the camps. If This Is a Man is almost a straight autobiography, and the majority of this collection of short stories is autobiographical. Not completely. There are some stories in this book which are fictitious, wonderfully written short stories, but most of what you will be reading is Primo Levi's account of his life. And as he was a chemist, and this is called the periodic table, the 21 chapters of the book are named argon, hydrogen, zinc, iron, potassium, nickel, lead, mercury, phosphorus, gold, cerium, chromium, sulfur, titanium, arsenic, nitrogen, tin, uranium is really a good one, silver, vanadium, and finally the last one is carbon. The autobiographical short stories are wonderful because it starts with him talking about his ancestry and how his Jewish family and lineage came to be located in Turin, Italy. And in the second chapter, he writes about how he discovered that chemistry was something that he was very much interested in and he wanted to pursue. From there, we get him going to the university where they have to perform these very mundane experiments under the guidance of some not entirely interested professors, to the evil specter of war descending. He's trying to get a job and people are hesitant to hire him because they know that he is Jewish. However, he does have a very highly regarded university degree. Chemistry, cum laude, is fantastic. So he is hired, but they do ask him, please do not talk to people about your race. However, not all of the chapters are autobiographical. So the chapter Lead is quite good. I really enjoyed the chapter called Mercury. It's an odd one. But then he does go back to talking about his own life. And at one point he talks about being in the camp at Auschwitz. In the chapter Cerium, he starts off by saying, "The fact that I, a chemist, engaged here in writing my stories about chemistry, have lived a different season, has been narrated elsewhere." And there he's referring to his books, If This Is a Man and The Truce, which were about Auschwitz. So he's directly telling us and speaking to the reader, if you want to know my Auschwitz stories, you're going to have to read my other books. However, this is an Auschwitz story, and he's going to relate something a bit differently. At a distance of 30 years, I find it difficult to reconstruct the sort of human being that corresponded in November 1944 to my name, or better, to my number, 174517. I must have, by then, overcome the most terrible crisis, the crisis of having become a part of the lager system, and I must have developed a strange callousness if I then managed not only to survive, but also to think, to register the world around me, and even to perform rather delicate work in an environment infected by the daily presence of death, and at the same time brought to a frenzy by the approach of the Russian liberators, who by now were only 80 kilometers away. Desperation and hope alternated at the rate that would have destroyed almost any normal person in an hour. I loved reading the short story collection. There is quite a lot of chemistry, which I'm afraid will turn some people off. If someone gave me a book and said, "Grant, there's a lot of chemistry in this book," that would not fill me with gleeful anticipation. No. However, Primo Levi makes it a joy to read. He writes it in a way that it's not dull. It's not the dry, boring chemistry that probably a lot of people imagine. He makes it, well, a kind of alchemy. He talks about it like when he is a university student, about how the professor gives him a powder, and the job of the students is to identify what kind of an element it is. And they have all of these chemistry tests that they have to do with this powder to identify it. I guess I'm not making it sound very exciting, but it really is. It is exciting. When I finished the book and I was thinking about making this presentation for my creative writing class, because this video is going to be as a part of my university studies and I'll be showing it to my creative writing class. Hi there. I was thinking that I would like to recommend it to the students of this class, but I think it may not be a collection of short stories that young people enjoy as much as I enjoyed it. To describe it simply would be to say that it is short stories about this man's life. Like one of the best chapters is where he discovers that at Auschwitz, one of the guards who he had contact with, he realizes that this German man is now also working at a chemistry company, and he writes to him to say, "Do you remember one of the Jewish prisoners named Primo Levi? That's me. Do you know that when I survived Auschwitz, I went home and I wrote about it?" And he writes this to his previous guard. Not so much a guard. The man is a chemist, and he is in charge of the chemistry laboratory. He wants to know, like, did you understand the conditions we were living under? Like, do you know what it took for me to survive that situation, and that almost everyone else died? Primo Levi didn't die because, like, what happened at the end of Auschwitz was that all of the prisoners who remained alive, they made them march ridiculous distance. These were people who are already starved and sick, had no clothes to wear, and they were forced to march. The vast majority of those people died. Primo Levi didn't have to march because he developed scarlet fever, and so they left him in the camp figuring that he would die and that he would never survive until the Russians arrived at the camp. But thank God he did survive. And he lived to write about his experience. We don't really have a lot of these survivor stories. It is a first-hand account of someone's life who had to go to Auschwitz because they were born of Jewish parents. And because he was lucky enough to take an interest in chemistry, because he was lucky enough to be given a position at a university and to excel, to get a degree, he survived. And then because he had the talent, he could even write about it afterwards. I have been to Auschwitz. I visited in 2003. A friend of mine was living in Krakow, Krakow is a very beautiful city, by the way. Just gorgeous. It has these old, like it is one of the few Polish cities that wasn't destroyed again and again and again. Like apparently Warsaw is depressing, like just abysmal, like just concrete cement. That's all it is because it was smashed so many times in so many wars. Krakow still exists in its somewhat medieval state. There's these city walls around Krakow and it is just beautiful. Auschwitz is a 1-hour train ride away from Krakow. So I did get to Auschwitz to see, to experience what it was like. It will have an effect on you. You're not a human being if you visit Auschwitz and it doesn't impact you. It will hit you very hard. The sad thing about that trip though, I went to visit this friend of mine, Mark, in Krakow. And Mark used to be kind of a party guy. He would go to the clubs every night and he liked dancing and he always, like I think he must have slept with half the girls in Krakow, really. Like he's one of those guys. He dances and girls like him and he's handsome and he's just one of those guys. The thing that surprises me is that he just never got tired of it. Like he never grew bored of this nightclubs, dancing, women lifestyle. Like he liked it as long as I've known him. He's always liked it. He's married and he has children now. So I went to visit him. And I went to Krakow, I think for 10 days. And when I got there, the whole 10 days started off badly from the beginning because I got off the train at, I think, 7 o'clock in the morning because it was an overnight train. Like you get on the train at 10 o'clock p.m. in Budapest and you take an overnight train, like on a sleeper car, and you arrive in Krakow at like 7 a.m. the next morning. It's a long train ride, but you get the sleeper car and you sleep and it's fine. They wake you up to check your passport at the border, no problem. I get off the train, Mark's there, and he's drunk at 7 a.m. Sunday morning. And he says to me with this sort of, he's always got an excuse for his bad behavior. He says, well, Saturday night I thought, well, what can I do? I can go to bed early and come and meet you at the station, or I can stay up dancing all night and then I'll meet you at the station. I just thought, if I try to go to bed early on a Saturday night, there's no way I'm going to wake up the next day. So I stayed up dancing all night and I'm drunk. I said, all right, well, what are we going to do then? Because I've just been sleeping for 8 hours on a train. What are we going to do? And so my very first day in Krakow, we went back to Mark's apartment and he slept for 8 hours while I looked around his apartment and tried to keep his stupid cat from clawing my shoes, because he had this cat who always liked to claw the toes of your running shoes. It was annoying. So that was the first day. And I said, look, Mark, all I want to do in the next 9 days is visit Auschwitz. I don't care what we do otherwise. I just want to walk around. I want to see the city. I want to, go to some clubs and see, show me what you like. But please make a day where we go to Auschwitz. And he said, okay, we'll do that. Every night we went out to a club and we were drinking and he was dancing and I don't like dancing, so I was drinking every night. The next day we always wake up at 12 noon. He says, it's too late to go to Auschwitz now. Let's just go get a coffee and we'll go get some lunch. Go get some lunch, go back to his apartment, hanging around. Same thing, every night. Now, I have 1 day left. So now it's Saturday. And I said, look, Mark, we have to go to Auschwitz tomorrow. That's my last day. Really, we wasted 8 days of just drinking and going out and drinking and going out, and made me angry because he can do that all summer long. All summer long he could do it. But the fact that I came to visit him, on an 8-hour train ride, and he just keeps doing it and he just keeps ignoring my, request to go to the camp. He says, all right, we'll go tomorrow for sure. We're going to wake up early. We're not going to go out. And then his friends start calling him and saying, Mark, we're going to go out. It's going to be a big night. It's going to be a big night. Oh, and he starts getting excited. He's like, oh, Grant, the guys are calling me. It's going to be a big night tonight. Like, Mark, I don't give a shit. I want to go to the camps tomorrow. We have to wake up early and get on the train and go. And he was just as moody as a child. Like I was telling him that there would be no Christmas this year. He was so miserable because of one night. I told him I didn't want to go out. So the next day we wake up early, we went to Auschwitz. And then just to be like a complete idiot, we went to Auschwitz and then he insisted on going out that night. I was like, man, I don't feel like it. I'm depressed as hell. Like that camp is awful. Like it's soul crushing. He said, come on, let's go out. So this idiot friend of mine goes out drinking and dancing to this horrible, horrible nightclub where there must have been 200 or 300 people dancing and there was one toilet. And I don't mean one toilet with many urinals or many stalls. I mean one single porcelain toilet bowl for everyone. very quickly, like you just kind of stepped in, closed the door, and you just pissed all over the place because there was no point in even aiming at the bowl because it was piss everywhere. And not just piss. So I said, look, this place, and it was just the worst nightclub he'd take me. There were some really nice nightclubs in Krakow, but this was the worst one. It was such a ugly meat market, and he loved it. I said, look, this is the worst place on earth. I want to go home. And then he wouldn't give me his keys. He said, no, you're going to go home and you're going to pass out, and then I'll be locked out all night. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? He said, well, if you insist on leaving, then I guess you can go sit on my front steps. So I did. I went and I sat on the front steps of his apartment building. And I waited for many, many hours for that idiot to get tired of dancing. I've been holding this in for 20 years. And I said, man, I never want to see that guy ever again. What a prick. Insists on going out dancing the same day we went to visit Auschwitz. Can you believe that shit? That's why I make these videos, to let it out. Please read The Periodic Table by Primo Levi. I would recommend reading If Not Now, When? I would recommend reading that one first, and unfortunately I haven't read If This Is a Man. Not yet. I will get around to it eventually. But this is a wonderful addition to the Primo Levi story. He's not only an Auschwitz survivor, he is a very talented, creative writer with a wonderful sense of humor. There are many, many funny episodes in this collection. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody in my creative writing class. Hope you enjoyed that. Please, if you would subscribe to Grant Loves Books, and if you would give a like to my videos, I would appreciate that. If you want to leave some comments, say hello, I'm in your class. Fantastic. If you're not in my creative writing class and you're enjoying the video, please give a like and subscribe as well. That helps a lot. Take care.